Is a series of mathematics workshops which is held by the UCD School of Mathematics and Statistics for secondary school students to teach them how to problem solve and think more mathematically.
Pupils involved are invited from the Dublin and Wicklow area. They're all DESH designated schools, and the workshops are designed by the UCD undergraduate and postgraduate students.
So for the secondary school students, we just want them to, I suppose, improve their understanding of what maths is and to see that there's potential in studying mathematics beyond their Leaving Cert. But it's also to see that it's more than just what you learn in the Leaving Cert, that you can do crazy things like cryptography, like game theory, and all of this is what mathematicians do in the real world.
For the UCD students themselves, they get to collaborate with one another, so they get to learn teamwork skills, they get to run the workshops, so they learn facilitation skills. They really bring on their knowledge of mathematics in terms of pedagogy and content.
Agus tá fáilte ród chuig an agalibh seo le Aoibhinn Ní Shúilleabháin. Is Misha Shuilleabháin Cuimhánach, Cahirlach na Inad Takeíochta Oideachas na hÉireann. You're all very welcome to this interview in the Inspiring Ireland Inspiring Students series with Aoibhinn Ní Shúilleabháin. We are delighted to have so many classrooms across the country joining us as you're getting ready for Maths Week. My name is Siobhan Kavanagh and I'm the chairperson of ESCI, the Education Support Centres of Ireland. Now at this stage, I'm sure most of you have joined us for previous interviews, so you will already know your local education centre. Education centres provide courses for teachers, but also resources that your teachers can borrow for maths, science, coding, puppets, etc. I recommend to teachers and to the school that you take a minute to follow your local education centres on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram to keep up to date with new courses and projects that your centres run. Students, can you do me a favour? Please remind your teachers later on today and tomorrow in case they forget. Every centre is involved in a range of Irish and European courses, and social media is a good way to keep informed. Please also follow @ESCI Tweets on Twitter. Now, our interview today is part of a series called Inspiring Ireland Inspiring Students. Inspiring students to reach for the stars, to dream big, and to realise that everyone, whether they are famous or not, started in a primary school like yours, had dreams like you have, and teachers and homework and chores like you have, and that with some inspiration, hard work and determination, you can achieve your goals. But our wish for you, as we mentioned before, is that you all grow up to be happy and fulfilled. Now, organising this series takes a lot of time, and I thank my fellow directors who have put a lot of work and vision into this series. But also, when we talk about work and vision, that brings us to our interviewer and driving force of the series, Dr. Fidelma Healy-Eames. Fidelma is a teacher and director of study and careers, educational consultants and providers of career guidance and study skills programs for young people. In spring 2021, she founded the Inspiring Ireland Inspiring Students series, and together with the Education Support Centres of Ireland, streams interviews with influential people into Irish classrooms. Her reasoning for this series is that a conversation can change a life, and that can inspire a new way forward. She is excited about the interest and feedback that the series has generated from teachers and students across the country. Fidelma.
Good morning, and thank you, Siobhan, for that introduction. And good morning, boys and girls in primary schools and second level schools all across our country. I'm seeing all your greetings come in here on the right of my screen. Well, look at it. This series has been amazing, the way it has gripped your imagination. And we are really, well, personally, I'm very excited about that. And every one of our guests has been met with a fabulous welcome. And it's my great honor to welcome our special guest today, Dr. Aoibhinn Ní Shúilleabháin. Aoibhinn is certainly an all-rounder. Wait until you hear this girl's CV. She is currently the assistant professor in mathematics education in UCD. that means she's responsible for the training of the future teachers of maths at second level. She's a TV and radio broadcaster, a musician, and former Rosetta League. So certainly she's working out of all sides of her brain, boys and girls. So it's my job today to dig deep a little bit, to see, particularly around the whole area of maths and science, because as you know, teachers and students, next week is Maths Week, and it's absolutely thrilling to have you with us, Aoibhinn. So, Guim fáilte mór thugad inniu, Aoibhinn.
Fidelma, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm great. Well, look, last week I had the opportunity to do a little, I guess, preview with you about what we'd be discussing today. And you are a maths enthusiast, you're a STEM enthusiast. Many of the children and teachers will know you from our screens. But one thing you said to me that bowled me over, because as you know, I was trying to figure out, when did you get to love maths? And what you said to me was, at the Christmas exams of your Leaving Cert year, you actually failed maths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your dad, you were thinking of going down to pass, and your dad said, "Oh, hold on a minute, let's hold on till the mocks." And you ended up getting an A in honours maths in the Leaving Cert. Can you tell us how you did that? That's inspirational.
Okay, thanks, Fidelma. And I would just want to say hi to all of the students and teachers that we have today. It's so lovely to see all the messages coming in the chat. A special hello to Ashley or Miss Egan's class on Step Aside Educate Together, which is only 5 minutes down the road from me now from where I am. August, Tasha Hall Pleshdal, O Anjanette Lee Nilahata Igornamona. So hi kids there as well. Now my camera is suddenly gone out of focus. That's not very helpful to anybody, is it?
Yeah, very good.
Oh no. Okay, hopefully it'll come back now.
It may come back, yeah.
Sorry about that, everybody. I might just stop it and start it again. But Fidelma, yeah, so I know most of our listeners here today, there we are, are primary schools. So this particular story mightn't be entirely relevant to you right now, but I want to make it relevant to you in that the research that I do, the work that I do in UCD looks at teaching and learning mathematics. And for some reason, a lot of people think that you have to be born good at maths, okay? And I just want to assure everybody right now that there's no such thing as a maths gene. Maths is something like everything else, like a sport, like music, that you practice. And if you practice it in the right way, you will get better. So if you don't know how to do something right now, actually practicing it with the right questions that aren't too hard and they aren't too easy. They're kind of like the Goldilocks questions. If you have them and you practice them in the right way, maths is something that you can get good at. Because I never thought that I was a good person at maths, you know, because I was never the first person with my hand up in class. And I had to work at things, because when I learn something, I don't like to learn it unless I really understand why I'm doing it or why I have to do it in a certain way. So without understanding, it doesn't mean anything to me. So to get back to your question,
tell us about the Leaving Cert story.
Of Leaving Cert, I was learning something called trigonometry. And trigonometry is all about functions, sine, cos, tan. You might have heard about them. But anyways, I really just didn't get it. And so that whole test was all about trigonometry, and I just didn't understand it and I failed. And that didn't make me very happy. I didn't like failing. And so I said, right, that's it. And obviously this is proof I am definitely not a maths person. So I'm just going to not do honours maths, and I'll do pass maths, and that'll be fine. And I'll pick something else for my that I'll do after my Leaving Cert. And thankfully my dad said, no, you don't get to quit that easily. He said, keep working at it and we'll get to your mocks and you can decide again after that. So what happened in the meantime is I met some friends from the boys' school. I didn't know them before, but I met them at a UCD Open Day, and we were on the train down from Dublin. We decided we were going to do a study group. And so every Saturday we met up to do maths together. Now it ended up we didn't actually do maths all of the time. We just had a lot of crack and we were laughing a good bit. But the most important thing was we were talking about mathematics and we were practicing it together. And we all ended up getting A's in our Leaving Cert. Why? Not because any of us are geniuses, because we practiced it and we practiced it together. And this is something that I have found out in my research on mathematics, because I've actually gone all around the world looking at how other places teach mathematics and do such amazing things in places like Japan and everything. But the difference is that you find in the places where students really love maths and they really excel at maths is that the teachers allow you to talk about maths, to share your ideas, to look at the different ways you answer the question, because sometimes knowing the wrong way to answer a question can almost be as valuable, I would actually say more valuable, than knowing the right way to do it. Because if you talk about all the wrong ways of doing it, you're actually learning the whole time. And I was having a conversation with some financial people earlier this morning, women in banking. They're very high up in banking and all these different companies. And they all said, we all agreed, failing is one of the most important things you can learn how to do in school. Because failing is actually learning how to succeed. So if you're getting things right the whole time, that's not actually good for you because you're not getting challenged. So it's good to get things wrong because then you learn how to get things right. So this is something that I try and get my teachers to do when I'm teaching the student teachers, that we have classrooms where there's lots of chat, lots of conversations, where we get to share all of our ideas and we all build our understanding and our confidence in mathematics. So right now, if you're somebody who thinks I'm just not a maths person, actually you can be a maths person.
So you're basically saying, give it a chance, open your mind, let in more light when it comes to maths and start talking about it. I think that talking about it is great advice because look, no more than yourself, I know you're a former post-primary teacher. I currently teach half-time and I would work with children that would have some learning difficulties and maybe a block around maths. And what would you say to it? And I want to get back to your childhood, of course, but before I leave this topic, since you're on it, what would you say to a child or a teenager that says, I'm no good at maths?
Well, just as I said there, Fidelma, like there's no such thing as a maths gene, and it's about just finding the way of understanding it. So if it's a thing that how your teachers explained it to you, it's just not falling into place, go and look at somewhere else. So maybe have a look online, maybe there's an online video, maybe somebody in your class could explain it to you, because that's what I often find, that even in university, when I did theoretical physics, which is studying maths and physics, and I loved doing that degree. But the most important thing was that our classmates, we worked together on our homework, and it helped all of us understand things better, because some people can understand different things in different ways, and just somebody else talking about it to you will really help. So if it's not falling into place right now, find somewhere else. For my leaving cert, I should have said this as well, I bought a different school book, because sometimes different books explain it in different ways. I bought the book that the boys' school was using. It made way more sense to me than the book that the girls' school had been using. So just try and find different ways to think about whatever it is that you're having a difficulty with. And it's so important to have the basics right, because if you can nail fractions, and if you can nail
the tables,
decimals, but you know, when I teach fractions, or when I teach teachers how to teach fractions and decimals, we draw pictures, we do loads of different things with it. So if the numbers just aren't clicking into place with you, maybe try drawing it out. And you know, that I think it's so important. So everyone can be good at this subject. It's just a matter of finding the right way for you to understand.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aoibhinn, for that. And I suppose what, like Siobhan said at the outset in the interview, you know, everyone I've been interviewing in this series, we started out as little kids in primary schools, second level schools, etc., coming up to where we are today. And the same applies to yourself, Aoibhinn. So could you tell us just a little bit about that little girl growing up in Mayo, a West of Ireland girl, guest today? You know, what was she like? Where did you come in the family? How might others have described you, Aoibhinn?
So, so me as a little girl, Aoibhinn, I was the eldest in my family. I have 5 younger brothers.
Wow.
And we lived in a small rural part of the countryside called Carnacun. And I was fairly quiet. Let me see, loved being outside, loved being outdoors, loved reading books. Not a very sporty person. Maybe I could have been, but I wasn't involved in sports.
What type of interest did you have, Aoibhinn?
Yeah, so that's, you know, mostly books and being outside, playing music. that was it really, just, you know, hanging out with cousins and out on the farm and just going for walks. And
Okay.
so very, very simple. And I went to School Raftery, School Longailach, Ikashonawari until third class. And then I moved to the school in Carnacon for the rest of my primary school. So a small rural school. So I had experience of both types of primary school. But I was listening to an interview with Jacqueline Wilson, who I think a lot of the students in school might have read some of her books. And she was saying, you know, she was never the cool kid or the popular kid in school. And I was never that either. I was never a cool kid, never a popular kid. Like I had friends, but like I just wasn't one of the stars of the classroom. I definitely wasn't the funniest person in the class. I definitely wasn't the most fun person in the class. So, and I thought that was an important thing to say, because I think when people see you on television, sometimes they think, oh, wow, you must have been like the most talkative person. And really, I wasn't. And
it's a question really, Aoibhinn, of how you develop, isn't it? I mean, the thing is,
I'm actually not a big extrovert. I'm not the loudest person in a room often. And when you do television, sometimes you're really only with a small crew of people.
Small crew, absolutely.
It really depends on the show. So I just think it's important to say that, you know, you can be quiet and you can be,
yourself.
Your own interests.
Yeah.
But you can still do lots of things that look like you are a big extroverted person, but it's not necessarily always the case.
So back to school then for a second, and tell us, did you have a favorite subject in primary school? Was there a subject you found hard?
I'm not sure about that. I loved poetry. I loved learning poems and songs. I just loved dancing. The best classes were when you were outside, when you're playing, we did set dancing a lot in primary school, and I loved that.
Okay.
So my dad was our teacher for 4th, 5th, and 6th class. So he did an awful lot of computers with us, and he did set dancing and like arts and crafts and things like that. So I loved all of that. I guess the only things that I found difficult was stuff that I found that I wasn't interested in. I found them a little bit boring. And I think that happens a lot in school, and it's okay, but I think it's much nicer when things are made engaging and interesting for you, because then you'll make an effort to learn it.
Okay. And you learned to play instruments as well. What musical instruments do you play, Aoibhinn?
Yeah, so like most people, I think, I imagine still happens in primary school, we all started on the tin whistle. And then moved on and tried to play the fiddle. I really wasn't good at it. And even though I'm like, practice makes perfect, I just actually didn't really like the fiddle. I wish now I probably made more of an effort. But after that, I had a concertina. So I have that, and I still play the concertina.
Absolutely.
It's a lovely instrument. Now, to be honest with you, Fidelma, like I didn't enjoy competitions. Actually, I hated them, and it kind of took the enjoyment out of it for a long time. But I love playing music, and I love playing music at a session with other people. So for me, it's not the performance; it's just the taking part,
just the joining in. And when, Aoibhinn, I mean, you are, as I said, a maths enthusiast. You specialize in maths and science now. When did you know that maths was going to be your thing? Like, did you at school, for example, did you want harder maths? I'm writing a book at the moment on the gifted learner, and some of our gifted learners are really into maths, and they would say to me, I don't want more maths. I want harder maths. Was that you?
No, and I wouldn't ever call myself gifted. But as I was saying to you earlier, it's just a subject that I wanted to get better in because I didn't want to be failing. And I just practiced it, and I guess looking for different ways of understanding it was the thing that was for me. And I grew to really, really enjoy it. Like that time between the Christmas and our leaving cert.
Okay.
And when I was, working on it with my friends, and I had bought the boys' school book, and I was really enjoying practicing all of those questions. There was a day where I was just like, okay, I think I got this now. Right. Okay, that's it. I'll happily study maths now. But I wasn't going to study my course because I loved maths. I was going to study my course because I loved physics, and I wanted to find out more about black holes. And I still love, I'm so interested in astrophysics and space. And like, it blows my mind how when you look up into the the sky at night and you look at a star, you're looking back at time, because it's taken sometimes days, sometimes weeks, but often years for the light from that star to get to you, to get to your eye.
Yeah.
So you're looking back in time. I find that so amazing. And I find it amazing that we live in this galaxy populated with lots of other stars that have lots of other planets. And at the center of every galaxy is a black hole. Like, I just find that fascinating. So that's why I picked my degree. Now,
yeah, I mean, I suppose that it's good to say that you studied theoretical physics, wasn't it?
mhm.
And could you, I suppose, maybe just say what theoretical physics is? You know,
That's
because
what it is, Fidelma. It's finding out about all those things.
yeah, I know.
As I was going to say, it's like it's physics, and theoretical physics means that you're looking at the mathematics that explains the physics. So there's experimental physics, and that means that you're doing experiments to verify your physical theory. So for example, if we want to find out how gravity works, or you take something and that's your experiment, it fell down, gravity is working. But with theoretical physics, you have to actually write out the equations to go, well, what does that mean? And how does gravity actually work in a mathematical equation? And why is that useful? Well, oftentimes when you do the mathematics can come up with different theories, but then you have to verify in experiments. And that's what Einstein did. Einstein came up with his theories through his mathematics, and then it was up to other people to verify them through the experiment.
Fantastic.
So that's why I loved that.
I think it's really good to get an explanation, because, like, I think sometimes we hear theoretical physics that could go right over our heads. It's very good for that, to have that explanation. There is a view, Aoibhinn, that the STEM subjects like maths and science are less appealing to girls. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, you're proof positive that's not the case, but what are your thoughts on that? And is there a different approach, in your view, needed to make maths and sciences more appealing to girls?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's no such thing as a subject being for boys or for girls. Now, that might have happened in the past, and it did happen in the past. We actually had exams in Ireland in the 1950s that said for girls only and for boys only, which is really, really terrible.
Wow.
That's something that we should try and move away from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did. Our inter-cert and leaving cert had mathematics papers for girls only, which is like atrocious. So what we're dealing with is a cultural problem. So it's not for any one person to tackle, but school has a big part to play. Our parents have a big part to play. Our culture, media, films, all these cartoons, everything has a big part to play.
Yeah.
But so what I would say is, while some people have thought in the past that science and maths and engineering are only for boys, you have to place that in. We have to remember that historically, it was only the boys that were allowed to go to university and study these things. So that's why probably it became like, oh, only boys can do that, because they were the only ones that were allowed to do it. Now girls are allowed to do everything. And girls can be as good at these subjects as boys can. And boys can be as good at subjects that girls, are traditionally associated with, like home economics. Like I've 5 brothers,
absolutely.
They are way better at cooking than I am. My husband is the best cook that I've ever met. So I don't think we should be specifying things as.
No, and you are right. We need to break down these old, if you like, the old thinking about it, and just say it's there for everyone. Maths and science is there for everyone.
Yeah. When we talk about maths, then it's just important that we recognize that it's not necessarily that it's gendered, but that people do actually learn in different ways. So when we talk about maybe learning something off, oftentimes that can suit boys more than it can suit girls. And when I was talking earlier about like having lots of conversations about your mathematics, the research shows that actually helps the girls in the class, because if you're somebody, and it's not all the girls, but like, the research shows in general, but if you're somebody who likes to understand why you're doing something, the conversations around it are really helpful.
Yeah.
One of my pet peeves, well, it's actually a massive bugbear, what I really hate to see is a clean workbook. Because if it's clean and if it's neat and tidy, you're not making any mistakes. And that either means it's way too easy, or you're having to do your thinking somewhere else. And learning is about thinking.
Yeah.
And all your mistakes need to be on the page. So So when I see someone who has a very neat maths book, I just go, well, they're very neat. But I'm
What
not
does that
sure
tell
that
me?
this is
Yes.
the best way for them to be learning.
Yeah.
Because you have to make the mistakes. And if you're a mathematician doing mathematics full time, you are doing maths and it's all over the place. There's pages everywhere. Maybe it's all over your whiteboard in your office. You're talking to other people about it. Mathematics is very collaborative, but it's all about making mistakes, because the maths that you work on as a mathematician, well, nobody's done it before, so no one knows how to do it. So it's actually all about making mistakes. But that's what I think would really benefit girls more, because oftentimes what happens then is that maybe a girl sees, well, wow, there's 2 people in the class and they're always getting the right answer. They must be really good at it, and that must mean that I'm not good at it. That's not the case. It just means everyone's working at a different pace. Those 2 people who you think are really good, they might be working really hard at home that you haven't seen. Exactly. Or this might be just a topic that they actually really enjoy and they're good at, but you will find a thing that you really enjoy and are good at, and maybe you just need to practice that a little bit more. So it's about talking, it's about thinking, it's about making the messes and not being afraid of being wrong, because being wrong actually helps you learn more.
Fabulous. Aoibhinn, I'm conscious of the time. I'm conscious of the time, and I want to move on to 1 or 2 different questions. And I take your point that, and I think is really well said, that we learn in different ways, and that learning is a messy business, and make it messy so that you figure out how you learn best. Just moving on, and you touched on it briefly at the beginning, just about friendship and personal development. And I suppose 2 things I'd like to ask you here is, did you have a group of friends in primary and second level school? And were you ever, I suppose the downside of when we work in groups and live in groups is that you can be teased or bullied. Did that ever happen to you?
Yeah. I think it's kind of almost inevitable that it happens in some cases. So for me, my mum was the last Frivaja in School Raftry. My dad was the principal in the other school that I was in. So obviously that makes you different to all the other kids.
Right.
And I guess then when I went to the secondary school, I was the only person from my school that went to that secondary school. So that kind of makes you a little bit on your own, a little bit different as well.
So how did you deal with it?
So I was, so I wouldn't like, it wasn't ever serious bullying, and serious bullying is like, it's very difficult, and it shouldn't happen. And I think for incidents of serious bullying, it's really important that people talk about it to somebody that they trust. For me, it was kind of low level, and I was maybe resilient enough, or maybe silly enough, that I didn't think it was that serious, and I kind of kept it to myself. Now, I did have a girl who saw something happening to me. She said it to one of my teachers, and that was actually really helpful. But to be honest, I was kind of used to being on my own, and it didn't seem to impact me hugely at the time. So yeah, I think it builds resilience in you. And as I said, it was kind of low level in terms of that when I started secondary school. But of course I had friends, but to be honest, the strongest friendships I made were from university and in my 20s. Yeah. They're the strongest friends.
Yeah, and it's really good, even to flag that. Yeah, it's really good to flag that for our young people, that we are developing in different ways and at different stages, and you could be making your friends later as well, the ones that maybe will stick with you. Today, I suppose, even as we said, you're a lecturer in UCD, the assistant professor of mathematics education. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to achieve in that role? More than you're currently doing, of course.
Yeah, so if I could wave a magic wand, I'd love to be Minister for Education for a little while and wave a magic wand. There's a lot of changes that I'd make in that, but I'm very lucky in the role that I have in that. There's a lot of freedom to research what I'm interested in. And so I'm doing a lot of projects about women in STEM, and obviously a lot of work on maths and science teaching. And I hope that I could be able to, work more with teachers to talk about the different ways that we teach and the other options that are out there. So one actually project that I'm working on at the moment, which will be launching in March next year, we're looking at role models in STEM for girls. So apprenticeships and lots of different women. One is a fashion designer, but she did science originally. And all these different things that you can do from a science degree. And I think this is really important. So
Fabulous.
it's called
Yeah.
You Can Be What You Can See, and it's going to be videos that you can watch in school or watch at home online. But for me, it's really important for everyone to realize that whatever your degree is, that doesn't mean that's your job forever. You know, I've had lots of different jobs since I graduated from university.
Absolutely,
University gives you different skills to go on to something else, or your apprenticeships. You know, I actually think, you know, apprenticeship can be way more valuable than doing a degree, because degrees don't suit everybody either. My cousin in London is doing her apprenticeship in engineering at the moment, and she loves it. My brother did an apprenticeship as an electrician, and then he went on and did robotics engineering. So you know, there's different paths into everything.
Yes, different pathways.
And I think that's really important.
Speaking of that, what is the best advice you got, career advice you got as a young person?
I don't know about that question, but I think the best career advice I've got recently, or in the last 10 years, is to not stay in something if you're not enjoying it. So I think moving it's brave, but it's sometimes necessary. And sometimes you can really, really get a lot out of switching and changing, and not to necessarily think of it as quitting, but it's actually doing something because you're not enjoying it. So I started a PhD in London in 2016 after the Rose Tree. And I did it for maybe 5 months, 6 months, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I quit and I came home and I really felt like an absolute failure. But it made me think about what do I really want to do? And that's when I decided I actually really want to get into education, and I want to teach. And I loved teaching, but I loved it so much that I wanted to do more on influencing teaching
and teacher education.
That's why I did my PhD then in mathematics education. So quitting that first PhD was the best thing I could have done, because I've ended up where I want to be, but I didn't know that at the time, and it was a really big decision to make. So I think being brave enough to stop something when you're not enjoying it, I think that's really good advice.
Yeah. Aoibhinn, thank you for I think sharing those personal challenges, because the one thing we want to be careful not to sometimes convey is because someone is well known or perceived as successful, that they didn't have challenges along the way, like being teased, like failing, like quitting. But the great thing is you got up and went again. Just a quick fire round, Aoibhinn, as we begin to close the show, if you like. If you just give me maybe one word to describe maybe some random events and people. Mayo.
Mayo, up Mayo.
An Gaeilge. Agus tá sa gom go blas an deas agat.
Well, tá sé an beaganín. Yeah, it's even lum an tanga.
It's even let an Gaeilge. GA.
That's the same as Mayo, isn't it?
Very good. COVID.
Isolating.
Afghanistan.
Oh God, I get very upset. I get very upset thinking about Afghanistan and all those families and all those children that are in that are in that terrible state right now. So yeah, I guess it gives you perspective and makes you thankful for where you are. But I also try and think about, well, what can we do to help? So yeah, I know around the country there's drives to collect coats. And I do think, you know, when we can donate to people like UNICEF and things like that we should really be doing that, because we're very privileged in our society that we don't have to deal with war right now.
Absolutely. And finally, Brexit.
Oh God, all the fun topics, Fidelma.
I'm only looking for one word, Aoibhinn. Just one word.
I can't say one word for Brexit, but I will say one thing. I met 2 secondary school students last week, one from the north and one from the south. And they have collaborated together to build the Secondary School Students' Union in Northern Ireland through friendship. And these teenagers have done so much by collaborating with each other, just by talking. I really wish that some politicians could just do the same.
Well, you did indicate that you'd like to be a Minister for Education, so but that's a discussion for another day, because I'm beginning to see maybe there's going to be a political future there. As we begin to close, some final messages, Aoibhinn. What's the most important life lesson you have learned?
This is a hybrid of my granny's advice to me, which is manners make it the man. But I really think you should be nice to everybody. And I think it's worth being a waiter or a waitress for some time in your life, because you understand then how rude people can be, and it helps you be kind to everybody. So it doesn't matter if it's a cleaner, if it's, you know, the person who's driving the bus, if it's the person who is greeting you at the office. you should be nice to absolutely everybody that you meet, because sometimes you'll meet them on the way up and sometimes they'll meet you on the way down. So
yeah,
I
it's
think
the
it's just really
interpersonal piece that's so important there. What's the message you'd like to leave with young people listening? And don't forget, there's lots of children and teenagers around the country online.
I'm sorry, I won't say anything rude, Fidelma. No, but like
Oh no, I don't mean it that way.
basically, just all I've been talking about is to not be afraid of being wrong, not being afraid of failing, and being confident and assured in yourself that if you really want to do something, you can absolutely practice it and get better at it.
Yeah.
You have absolutely all of the world's potential at your feet. And I really truly believe that. I love working with young people because they're so full of enthusiasm and so full of potential. And, you know, you can all go and do really great things in the world. If that's in your local community, or if it's on a national scale, or if it's on an international scale, you have so much potential. So that's why I love chatting with young people, because
and thank you for that positive message to them, because practice is really cool, you know. What's your message finally to teachers listening? Because obviously it's the teachers that are making the decisions to even have our students with you today.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think that, you know, teaching is one of the most valuable roles that we have in society, because education is a cornerstone of our society, and teachers hold that up. So I think teachers are the most valuable people that we have. Unfortunately, we don't value them enough. But I think when you have a good teacher, it makes such a difference. And I know that as a teacher, when you have students that you absolutely adore, you have such a nice and energetic atmosphere in class, and it really makes every day enjoyable. So I value teachers, I value them highly, and I would like more people to value them more, because I think it's a really great, it's a great profession. But I also think teachers have a great responsibility, because it's really important that we don't teach in the same way that previous generations were taught, because there was a lot of biases in previous generations, be that gender, or be that just thinking everything had to be learned off. We have the world at our fingertips now on our phone. The most important thing we can be teaching is skills to problem solve, and skills to come back from learning something and, you know, making a mistake. So conversational classrooms, collaborative classrooms, project-based problem-solving classrooms, that's the future. And I think we have to really support our teachers in building that.
So Aoibhinn, I want to say thank you very much for your time and attention, and for your contribution today, and for being inspiring. It was bringing a whole other perspective to the talking about maths, the practicing, the problem solving, the messy business that it is. And look, I'm conscious that our teachers and classes have to go, our slot is up, but Goramahagat. You know, it's been a fabulous contribution. Boys and girls and teachers, we have just one more Inspiring Ireland session left in the series. It'll be in November, and it will be with the Children's Ombudsman, which is a whole other angle. And we look forward to seeing you then. I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Siobhan Kavanagh and Catherine Doolan from Laois Education Centre for supporting us in the background. Thanks to the education centres around the country that promote this, that reach into our schools, and to ESCI, the overarching body. Do follow me on educate_talent. That's the Twitter, just to keep an eye on the next events. So slán, and have a great day.
Thanks for all the male schools for tuning in as well. Okay, slán tamil Culligana.
Has been home to all sorts of shows and public fun in September. Pamukkale means Cotton Castle in Turkish. The pub is owned by Matt Malloy, who played with the Chieftains, and tonight we're joined by his son Peter, who's on the flute. A bit of music like that's always good for the soul.
Just to show you, she really is an all-rounder. So slán.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
You're welcome.